Hello, Kent Hovind here, and Ernie Land, backwards on the screen here. Josceyln, good to have you here. It is 5:20 in the afternoon. We just came back from Paul Hansen's sentencing, August 21st. He was given 18 months and time served. He'll serve about 6 more months. He stood up and testified. It took 2.5 hours for the sentencing hearing. The guidelines recommended, 4 to 5 years, 5 to 6 years.
6.5 actually, yeah.
And so the judge cut it down considerably, which is good. I think it should have been 0. Go home, time served, but oh well. Ernie, you were telling me about the case here in Pensacola with the strip club.
Oh, the judge, that's back when she was an attorney. She handled the local strip clubs and actually helped them get licensed. That was back during her attorney days before she was a judge, yeah.
That's appropriate.
And that had to do with getting strip clubs near a church, was that it?
That's correct.
Okay. Anyway, Josh, what did you think of the sentencing today?
Well, it looked like he was going to get 6.5 all the way up to the end. I mean, they were going back and forth about what points to keep and throw out. And I honestly, I thought she was going to throw the book at him right up until the end, and then she came back, and I think she tried to, I don't know, maybe be a bit of a politician.
Well, she called me up, Paul called me up to testify for his character, and called Ernie up to testify, and we said, man, this guy loves the Lord. He has no intention of breaking any laws. Never was. I never had the intention of breaking the law.
Yeah.
I still don't think I did. I mean, taking your money out of the bank to pay your bills. Not only I don't think that's against the law. I don't think they should put you in jail for it, nor take all the money.
Well, I think Paul made a really good. His focus was good. He stayed on point. He kept saying, you know, the prosecution is trying to make it out like I've done all of these different horrible criminal things. All I've done is mailed a letter. That's one thing. And I didn't even file the document. I mailed it to an attorney. So you can't even say that I was trying to do something wrong and impede the government by filing a document when all I did was mail a letter to an attorney.
Right.
One thing, and that's the only thing I did. And so he kept coming back to that talking point, and it was hard to ignore that they were going to try to put him away for a long time for just mailing a letter.
It is so bizarre. Anyway, Paul Hansen, Ernie, he calls you quite often, so people, and you support him while he's in jail for the, commissary type needs if somebody wants to give something for Paul Hansen.
And they have been. We appreciate your support for Paul Hansen. Looks like he's going to need it for another few months. She even said that pending his appeal, she would most likely not rule to let him out, even if he filed a motion to be released pending an appeal.
Right.
And she said, I will let you know that I'll rule on it if you want to file it, but most likely I will rule unfavorably. So she won't allow that.
It was interesting. There was never any loss of money at all to anybody.
No damages.
No damages to anybody. I took notes here frantically, but they recommended 51 to 63 months, but that charge could go up to life in prison.
Yeah.
I said, you've got to be kidding. They asked him if he was a U.S. citizen, and they asked Ernie if he was a U.S. citizen.
That's when it got interesting.
Yeah.
What did you think about that, Josh?
Well, it was very interesting because when you testified as a character witness, it was just he asked his questions, and that was pretty much the end, and you sat down. Then when Ernie got up to be a character witness, same thing happened, and I thought, okay, he's going to sit down now, and then the prosecution wanted to jump up and start questioning, and then the judge had a question for him, and it kept coming back to basically, do you view this, or do you believe this court has jurisdiction over you? Do you believe you're a U.S. citizen? And, I mean, as an observer, that was very interesting that they found that question to be so worth debating or discussing and digging deeper into, because I think that kind of strikes at their very foundation.
Very cool. I mean, the state, he notified me, of course, of all the positions he had held all the way up to U.S. District Attorney here, and then he wanted to really pound on that U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Then I love the closing argument when he come back on the close there and wanted to pound away at how as if we wouldn't abide by the law, or as if we were doing something wrong, or as if we weren't supporting the military. And I can't say nothing at that point. We're part of the audience by then, but I wanted to look back at him and say, hey, what about the $500,000 plus that you guys have spent on this trial, on first round, second round, and now with Paul Hansen? It was over $300,000 first round, so I mean it's got to be exceeding the $500,000 now. why couldn't that go to the military except you guys here in this courtroom, in this district court? Y'all wanted that funds to come to your courtroom.
Right.
So you put on this kangaroo court to have all that funding come to you versus going to our military. I really would have liked to ask him that question back.
Well, I think what happened in my case and Paul's case, all tied together here, is a classic example of what's wrong with many things in the system. You know, the IRS, the Justice Department, the courts. It's time, people. This is America, for heaven's sake. You know, the land of the free and the home of the slave.
Exactly.
Or whatever they call it. And plenty of fees out there. So get a hold of the congressional or the presidential candidates and say, look, would you investigate what happened? Investigate everybody all the way up the chain and see, did everybody obey the law? I encourage everybody to obey the law. Man.
Absolutely. And the other question the U.S. District Attorney wanted to address was, where is this court of record? Where can you find one of these common law courts? You guys done away with them. Didn't you like the answer about the justice of the peace?
Yeah, that was
They're not licensed attorneys. We operated
Yeah.
under justice of the peace system for years. You're sitting here, even the judge kind of giggled off on the Amendment 6 assistance to cancel.
Right.
And, hey, for years, we operated under a JP system that, in many cases, the JPs were never schooled in law. They didn't go to court and go through a process or learning curve. They were elected by the people to perform justice, justly apply the laws that were written.
Correct. And like I've said many times, you take a basketball court. This will be a basketball court. The referee has jurisdiction over the people inside that square, rectangle, during certain times, game time, and they have certain territorial jurisdiction in the court and over certain people and over certain times. The referee cannot walk up into the stands and tell somebody, quit drinking that Pepsi. They don't have jurisdiction outside of that basketball court, okay? And everybody should stay within their jurisdictional limits. I don't go next door and tell my neighbor, you better mow your grass. That's not I got my own grass, okay? I got plenty to do here. So I think everybody should obey the law. And Paul is very wisely saying, when he gets a letter or something, say, excuse me, would you please tell me who is the man or person, woman, who is telling me I must do this? I would like to face my accuser. Who's telling me that I have this obligation? One of his charges was failure to appear. They sent him a letter in Nebraska and said, you have to come to Pensacola to give your fingerprints. He wrote and said, why can't I do this in Nebraska? I'm 2 blocks away from the courthouse, and who's telling me I have to go to who is the person telling me I've got to go to Pensacola, and what is their jurisdiction? Logical answer. You know, if you get pulled over for speeding out here by a Mexican police officer, you don't argue how fast was I going.
Right.
You argue, who are you and where's your jurisdiction? That's law 101, you know. And so Paul is really good, and they don't like to have their jurisdiction challenged. Oh man, this federal court thinks they got jurisdiction everywhere, over everybody, over all times. And I think it's something worth investigating. And if you want to know more on that, get a hold of Paul. He's a genius on that. Anyway, I thank you guys for coming to the trial, to sentencing, and be praying. It's not over yet. We want to take this all the way to the wall and let Congress needed to get pressure from so many people. They have to do something, and it's real simple. Repeal the stupid structuring law. Absolutely. Make it retroactive. Más importante. And pay the damages. They've damaged all kinds of people with that dumb law. Congress, you handed them the club to beat us with. Take away their club, please. It's real simple.
Stop the beating.
Ernie, any more comments?
No, I think that's a bit. If we can get Congress to just move and act and perform their position and start impeaching some of these judges that are misapplying or overstepping their bounds, I think it'll send a signal through the whole judicial system. But hey, we've got a judicial system that's redefining the English language. They're redefining what jurisdiction and territorial jurisdiction, all those things. They are redefining it, and they're doing away with the common law structure. So you don't even have a method to go defend yourself because they're forcing you into their jurisdiction. Is that U.S. citizen, as they want to call everybody, that U.S. citizen. And you know, I should have thought a little quicker. I didn't perform very well. I should have asked. Are you asking me if I'm a citizen of the United States Corporation, or am I a naturalized citizen of America?
See, my understanding is there are at least 6 or 7 different United Stateses. So when someone says, do you live in the United States? I say, I don't know. I used to think I did. I don't know. What do you mean? You know, there's a U.S. corporation that covers Guam and Puerto Rico. I don't live there. There's one that covers Virgin Islands. I don't live there. I mean, there's one that covers the Philippines. I don't know if I'm one or not. You tell me. That's what Paul does. Paul says, what evidence do you have that I'm a U.S. citizen? And they hate that question.
Yeah, he made the distinction early on that he wasn't denying their jurisdiction. He merely wanted them to prove their jurisdiction.
Sure, show me.
And he pointed out, I've requested this many times. You've never done it. I'm not denying your jurisdiction. I'm just asking you to prove it. And that's just a very, if you can prove it, it should be rather easy to do. Why can't you do it?
I called Rudy Davis a few minutes ago, and he's going to get a hold of Paul when he gets back in chains back to the jail, and have him do something on Rudy Davis's YouTube channel, Lone Star 1776. So if you want to follow this bizarre case, please do, and please pray about this. This is foundational to get our country back to common sense. We have a constitution, for heaven's sake, and I believe everybody should follow it. I think everybody should obey the Bible. I think they should. I think everybody should obey the law. I'm not a lawbreaker, and this is just, my case is a classic example of some of the things that need to be fixed. And, of course, I do have a personal interest in this. I don't want to be a felon the rest of my life. But Paul not only goes to prison for 18 months and has to pay him $200 for doing it, he's got 3 years of probation after that. Hello, somebody, please. Well, let's petition heaven. Our country, we deserve the judgment of God. Our country does. And that's sad, but we're going to get it, I'm afraid. Anyway, Josh, any final words?
I just remember sitting there thinking, this is how they come for the Christians. I don't believe there's going to be a single moment when they come for us and we get to grandstand it out. I think this is how it happens. One at a time, they start cracking down and finding ways to go after individuals. And so we need to rally together for this case and to keep him in prayer and put pressure on the system to change. Not
only how they come get us, how the mark of the beast is going to be implemented.
Exactly.
It's not going to be a grand moment where you stand up. It's just going to be, oh, you don't have a chip? Sorry, you can't buy. All the stores just quit taking your cash, quit taking your credit cards, quit taking your checks, and all of a sudden you just simply can't buy or sell.
It will be a gradual war of attrition, and we're already seeing it.
Excluded, right? Exactly.
Now, Louisiana's already had an instance where they tried to pass laws to stop cash.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's many places already doing that in different ways, different areas. But yeah, cash is a big area, I think, where we can vote literally with our money. That's one way to fight the system, just use cash.
Yeah, I took notes frantically and my hand scratching as the judge was speaking. She said, there's nothing more threatening to society than someone claiming laws don't apply to them. Now, that's a good quote. I think that the same thing applies to the federal courts. Does the Constitution apply? Are you inside your jurisdiction? You know, is the U.S. Attorney inside their jurisdiction? Just exactly where's the boundary on this court? Who is it playing time? You know, the territorial jurisdiction. Where does theirs stop?
Do you remember when the judge asked Ernie about where does the defendant stand on the laws in the Constitution, et cetera? Because it was almost like an emperor has no clothes moment where she was asking this because Ernie, your response was great. You said, well, he goes straight to the Constitution. He believes the Constitution is the law of the land. But as for, and then she drove this question. She said, well, what about the current laws?
Yeah, and I told her you got to apply the statute, the code, and the regulations.
But that was a big deal for her.
Yeah, it was, and she smiled about that the whole time she was looking at me. She grinned from ear to ear because I said, you have to apply those, but those are lower laws. There's a higher law. It's the U.S. Constitution, the common law. And I noticed the grin on her face, like, okay, like I don't know if she meant I shouldn't ask that question, or
it kind of is the question.
She was kind of agreeing with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if there's any connection at all in any of this, but I just got word a few minutes ago that the Pamela C. Marsh, the U.S. Attorney, that her name's on all kinds of stuff in my original case and the last one, has resigned yesterday, and so that's what Theodore told me.
Huh.
So there'll be stuff on his freekenthovind.com site about that. And I heard that Michelle Heldemeyer, who came after me at the original case in 2006, is now pretty serious cancer in Colorado. I hate that. I don't want to shut on anybody. You know. And of course, the one John David Roy Atchison, pedophile, went to Detroit to have sex with a 5-year-old and got off the plane and hung himself. And federal courthouse is down with mold, and they say it cost $10 million to build it and $30 million to fix it. I don't know if there's any connection or not, and don't accuse me of saying that, but I think somebody ought to say, hello, maybe God's trying to talk to somebody. I don't know. I just want them to leave me alone, okay? I'm just a preacher who wants to get out and serve God. So
We'll recognize it as the wrath comes down on our nation as a whole, and then it
sad,
may be too late for the American believers, and I redefine Christian to believers, because you got to be a believer, and if you're defining yourself as a Christian and you don't know what a believer is, then you need to get into God's Word and find out.
That's a good point. I love that. Thank you so much, fellas, for joining us, and we'll do more of your questions here as soon as I can. We're getting to it. Thank you so much.